Hello everyone, thanks for having me at another Bioenergy conference. Thank you Javier for inviting me again to speak. My name's Robert Laird. I own a company called Carbon Offset Zone, and I'm just going to tell you a little bit about biochar and the sustainability. This is based on my experience only. I don't speak from the perspective of a scientist at all. I'm just a guy who has dedicated the last 10 years or so of my life to fighting climate change in a sustainable way. So this is my story. I'm afraid because I'm from down under, I've had to pre-record this. Carbon Offset Zone are committed to fixing the problems of the world, like climate change, because global warming affects all of us. What with our waste being landfilled or burned or going into the ocean, food security due to climate change, and climate change itself. Solving all these issues seemed a little overwhelming at first. After all, what can one person possibly do? I gave it some thought. I tried a few things, but I'm no rocket scientist. I needed help. I'm just an engineer with a big dream. I've seen at the coalface the damage done by mining to turn their backs on farming in the pursuit of electricity at the expense of the climate. Seems ludicrous to me. So I did a course in carbon accounting to better understand the carbon cycle, and that's when I started thinking about it. Should I be a tree farmer? Tree farming seemed like a logical choice. It made sense to me. But how could I be a tree farmer? I didn't have thousands of hectares of land, and I didn't want to wait 20 years for a small impact. I also found that mustering trees was hard work. A lot of machinery, a lot of people, it's heavy stuff to move. But I could see there was a potential. There was a commodity there. Then, as I learned about tree farming, I also learned about biochar. This product kept coming up in the literature. Biochar was good in that it was carbon negative when made in a pyrolysis system. So I wanted to know more. I understood fire. Now I understood carbon. I just had to prove it for myself. Was there something in this? Was it worth it? Could I do something important? Could I turn wood into carbon efficiently? And was it scalable so that I could produce more for farms all over the place, not just here? So now I just had to try it for myself. So I grabbed some sticks in my backyard, put them in a tin, put it on the barbecue and heated it up. And I noticed that black liquid you can see coming from the fitting and the long flame coming from a cigarette lighter. I knew I had fuel, and I'd just made my first batch of biochar, and I happened to have collected a flammable oil. This was exciting to me. I had a flammable gas and an oil. I also had biochar. Time to see if that worked. So I put it in the ground, just raw biochar, and you can see the results. This is a photo you've probably seen around. This is my first test, and the results speak for themselves. That was my eureka moment, when I knew that I could produce this product from waste and get somewhere with food production. I'll trust the science, but every time I tried it, it worked. Everywhere there was biochar, even if it wasn't in the ground, plants seemed to grow. So I started making various contraptions to make biochar, different designs over many years to put this power in my hands. I got bigger, I made larger and larger retorts, and eventually worked out that I could harness the syngas as a fuel to use elsewhere, and started teaching people all about it, using biochar from waste to grow food. Now I had the power of syngas at my fingertips. I also had discovered wood vinegar, so I started designing a unit that was very efficient and simple to use. The design brief was simple. It had to be a simple to use machine, no whistles and bells, no batteries, no electricity, no fuel of any kind required, just using the waste wood to drive itself. It had to be portable, so it could get to the situation, whether it was in an orchard or out on the field. It had to produce biochar, and it had to produce wood vinegar. And that's what it does, in a very simple way, using nothing but taps to control pressure and temperature. And you've got oil, vinegar, and syngas. I've been selling plans for these for some years now, and they're popping up in all parts of the world, including Australia, New Zealand, Lebanon, South Africa, Kenya, Spain, France, and the USA, as well as a few other places popping up. They can use one of the byproducts, which is the flammable oil, as an accelerant. So you don't need any other fuel. It produces its own. Right from the get-go, I use the bio-oil to start the process. You can see how the design actually controls the heat. There are flames going down the retort. This is the only machine like it. It's using the power of syngas, but harnessing it. Now I was happy. I could not only make biochar, but I could use that syngas for other purposes, whether it be for cooking, like in this simple demonstration, or for steam generation, or hot water for any purpose. I've also created electricity from syngas. Could easily be done from steam too. And I produce plenty of biochar and wood vinegar for a sustainable little business. Personally, I've produced over 1,000 tonnes of carbon equivalent from the atmosphere I've buried in the ground to help grow more food. But I'm just one person, and this is all about sustainability. This business model can be duplicated. How do you know it's good? Listen to this. Good biochar is very clinky, like glass, and should break easily and be light. That's exactly what I make. Light, clinky, high quality biochar. High carbon content and high surface area. That's the key. We've had our biochar tested on numerous occasions, and we always get high carbon content of over 80% and enough surface area to fill a football field. I've shown this at a number of conferences, and people have been buying them from all over the world, but global demand asked for more. People wanted more biochar. They wanted to make it twice as fast. They wanted to get to twice as many farmers. So I set about designing an even bigger model. So then we came up with the Series 3, which has 3 cubic metre capacity as opposed to 1.4 cubic in the Series 2. They both are trailable to get into the area that you need them, whether it's a vineyard or a forest or clearing invasive species to make biochar like this customer.
No smoke, and zero pressure, and 550 we're going to 600. Very good run, actually very good, no issues, zero.
Here you can see the syngas being released after the smoky gases have been cleaned and condensed taking the non-flammable wood vinegar out and some wood tar, bio-oil, but all the useful product is being used to heat up the entire retort, which in this case is 3 meters cubed. The use of invasive species is particularly appealing to me. I personally use a product called camphor laurel, which is an invasive tree in my area, but I've seen it in other countries as well. I certainly worked in Hong Kong clearing invasive species to revegetate the mountainside using biochar made from the invasive species. I'm not going to go on and on about biochar and cation exchange and the benefits. I think most people already know a lot about that, certainly in this room. But I am going to talk about climate change for the char maker. We all know it's getting hotter, and in Australia we've just seen the worst fires in history. 2019 to 2020 there was a catastrophic fire event and there was a total fire ban imposed. Nobody could light a barbecue, let alone make biochar. However, I did approach the local fire authorities and the State Emergency Service, showed them what I was doing, and they granted me an exemption from the total fire ban in the middle of this catastrophic event. So I was the only person in the country who could make charcoal during a total fire ban. So I continued with my business while my neighbours couldn't have a barbecue. That's safety, that's sustainability, and that's the model. Due to increasing international demand, we've opened manufacturing facilities in Africa and Europe. Customers can buy off-the-shelf products which are good quality to make biochar out of wood or whatever is around. Any carbon-based life form will do. However, wood is the easy option to make great biochar. Just put it in our machine and you'll see the results immediately. Not only is biochar good for plants, I've met some people who've shown that it's good for animals as well. There's Doug Power who feeds his biochar to his cattle. The cattle create more milk and put on weight faster than the counterparts who haven't had biochar in their diet and produce far less greenhouse gas. We are currently working with a Norwegian company to utilise this excess syngas for central heating purposes. As this process is so efficient, it produces 3 times more energy than it consumes to make the biochar. And a tonne of biochar made in this way takes more than 3 tonnes of carbon equivalent from the atmosphere. Our units are now gaining attention as a legitimate carbon credit generation methodology, and we are taking orders from multiple large corporations as a means to reducing their carbon footprint and achieving net zero emissions. That's sustainability for the future. The model is here, using waste to solve energy and food security issues and help tackle climate change by reducing carbon footprints. So if you ever wonder what you can do as one person, well, remember, I've taken 1,000 tonnes of CO2 equivalent from the sky using this method, and 1,000 more can follow in my footsteps.